Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me thank you for being here. The stories on this podcast are meant to let you know that you're not alone in what you're going through, and that we can all find strength in struggle with the right perspective. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let me ask that you leave a review on your platform of choice to help us grow so that we can continue to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 76. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest down in Mississippi, Anna Gibson. Anna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I was telling you before we recorded that I heard the Southern in your voice, and I also realized that you're not from Nashville, Tennessee. You're in Nashville, Mississippi, which I did not know existed.
No, Joe. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, but I'm from Mississippi.
You know what? I am so confused tonight. This is puppy brain on full blast.
I'm dying.
Well, you know what?
So
We're going to jump right in because I found you originally through Grace Williams, who is episode 6 of this podcast. And Grace is one of the most incredible human beings who I know. How do you know Grace?
Okay. So when I was living in Mississippi, I'm originally from the coast. We met through, so my sister, Nicole, who I actually live with in Nashville, we were living in Hattiesburg at the time. And so we were working out at this gym, this CrossFit gym, and Grace was actually coaching at Orange Theory, but wanted to try CrossFit. And so she, DM'd Nicole, and Nicole was like, yeah, come work out with us. And so I was like, okay, Grace is going to come work out with us. First day, hit it off. Just like, let me get your phone number. Let's start texting. Let's meet up at the gym. Let's do assault bike sprints. She was all in. And so we just started hanging out outside of the gym, doing fun little photo shoots. I would go over to her apartment and listen in on the BPN meetings because we would hang out on Tuesdays. And so I would just be in the background, just she would be in the other room. And so, yeah, but then let me see. Summer of 2022 came around and I started living with her. I moved up to Madison for the summer because I got an internship at CrossFit Jackson to do their social media and stuff. And I was still applying for BPN ambassadors and stuff like that. And it ended up being around August, right before I moved to Nashville, I got accepted. And I went up to Madison one more time for a photo shoot with the owner of CrossFit Jackson, Holly. And I met up with Grace and we did a shoot for my, me announcing I was becoming a ambassador and her becoming an athlete for BPN. And so, it was just really great friendship. It's been almost 2 years of knowing her, probably more than 2 years, but yeah, she's the number one person in my life. She's up there. And so we're really, really close. We still text every single day and we call. And yeah,
Grace's episode of my podcast is one of my favorites. I believe it was one of her first podcasts that she's done as well, and she crushed it. Now I also didn't realize how young you are. How old are you? 20?
Yeah,
that's wild. You come across so much older than 20 through social media.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh my God.
Well, so Anna, introduce yourself, if you will, to the audience. Tell us anything and everything about you, and we'll jump in from there.
Okay. So I'm 20 years old. I started CrossFit when I was about, 17. I was playing soccer in high school and they required us to do workout classes, but my mom was already training at a CrossFit gym. So she was like, just come with me. And I was like, okay. Ended up falling in love with CrossFit. I was extremely underweight for my age. I had a pretty bad eating disorder because of like just high school and stuff like that, just people influencing me, but not in like the most positive way. But thankfully, like when I started doing CrossFit, that's like it became like an everyday thing. And so I was around people who were healthy, who were trying to be their best selves, just, getting a workout in every day. And when I saw that, it's like, oh, like I don't want to continue what I'm doing, I want to change because I want to be like the best version of myself. And so then I had a couple of like mental health issues. It's like just really rough time in my life. I was like doing hard drugs and stuff like that, and I was still going to CrossFit. And people, when I share my story, I just want people to understand, like, if they haven't been through like kind of the same thing I've been through, it's really hard to like switch to doing good things, like creating better habits. It doesn't just happen overnight where I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna start eating, I'm gonna stop doing drugs, like stuff like that. It's a process, and it's very painful, and it's not fun. Like, I'm gonna be completely honest, it's not fun. So, I'm still like going through a lot. And my sister, Nicole, at the time, she was living in California with my brother-in-law, Matt. And we weren't very close. I wasn't really close with anyone in my family. I was pretty lonely during this time. But yeah, she ended up, like, my mom was just like, I don't know what to do, like with Anna Grace. Like, I genuinely, like, we don't know what to do. Can you please like come help us? So, Nicole moved down for family and, to help me. And Nicole and I like became best friends. There wasn't, since the day she moved to like when she moved to Nashville, unless they were on a trip, we were never apart. I was always at her house. I like basically lived at her house at one point. I had all my food there, all my stuff there, my clothes, everything. I was just always there. Because they just like welcomed me with open arms. And she was on her journey to be a professional CrossFit Games athlete, and so she was at the gym 8 hours a day. So if she's at the gym 8 hours a day, if I want to spend time with her, then I have to be at the gym 8 hours a day. And that was hard too, because I was learning, like, this isn't like CrossFit. Like, people who go to CrossFit to stay in shape are like, oh, like, let's have fun, like, it doesn't really, like, it's not that big of a deal, like scores don't matter. But like, to her, it's like, this is a job, and like this is my life, and I want to create a career out of this. And just seeing like her go from like not having a career to having that title and everything like that, it was just amazing to watch. And it taught me a lot. It taught me about priorities, how to be healthy, and it really helped me like turn my life around, because instead of like focusing on like, what drug I was going to do that day or how I was going to get it or whatever, I was focusing on like, oh, like, how can I recover better to like get, do a workout.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to unpack here. And
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
excited. No, I'm excited for it. Like, so one thing that jumped out to me right off the bat is that, the people around you in your life, the people you are surrounded with, have a big influence on you. And it sounds like you went from being surrounded by people who you didn't necessarily want to be influenced by, but you were, to being surrounded by people like your sister and like Grace and like family who were able to help pull you out of that and influence you in a positive way. And you alluded to it. You alluded to the drugs, and I told you before we recorded that I know very scattered pieces of your story, and I'm excited to connect the dots and see how everything fits together. I would love to ask you the first question and then hear more of your story in response. The question is, what is the hardest thing you've ever had to handle in your life, and how has that shaped you?
Let me see. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, and if it's
Probably,
easiest, oh, go ahead. Yeah,
yeah, it was probably, so when I started like doing hard drugs, I was in a relationship with someone I should not have been in a relationship with. He was about 3 to 4 years older than me. I was like 17 at the time. And he, like he introduced me to like drugs basically. And like,
Mm.
I'm like, oh, like I have this older boyfriend, like he's perfect. He's going to take care of me. Like, no. That wasn't the case. More times, like I was taking care of him because
Mm.
he was like high. And at like as a person who grew up literally homeschooled and in a church like majority of my life, that was new. Like I didn't, I had no
Yeah.
idea what I was getting myself into. I like kind of dabbled in, drugs in like early high school when I was like 15 or 16, but nothing like what he was doing. And so it was a lot, and I trusted him so much to where he would like hold up like any type of powder and be like, "Here, take this." And I'd be like, "Oh, okay." Like, and which is insane, I know, but like I was so naive and so young. And it's just I had a like attachment to him, and because like he was like he got me drugs, he did this, he did that, that when we weren't together, it was really hard for me to let go. And my parents were so upset with me. Like they were just like they were honestly scared, and I think that's where like a lot of the like upsetness came from, is like they like didn't really know how to handle it because my two older sisters, like they never really did anything like this. And so um yeah, it was a big thing in our family, and our family is very small. I only have one grandmother, but she lives like 2 hours away from us, so it's like she wasn't really involved. It was just like me, my mom, and my dad, my two sisters, and then my brother-in-law Matt. And it was a lot for everyone, and it's like I can't imagine like what they were thinking when I was going through that, but like it was a really hard time for all of us because my mom wasn't focused on, oh, like, what's Anna Grace going to do in school today or blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, is Anna Grace going to come home alive today? Like, is she okay? Like, they don't know where I am, because I would like, they knew that I left my phone at like either his house or my house, and like I would just go off, and like, they're at night, they're thinking like, is tomorrow, like, is she going to come home okay? Or is she going to be alive tomorrow? And like, that's where it was. And that was one of the hardest things I've had to overcome, and one of the hardest things that's like I've been through.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I so I have a question, and it's okay if you don't want to answer. But when you started kind of taking those harder drugs and things maybe escalated from where they were, I mean, do you have a low point that you hit that you can recollect, that you can remember? Was there a specific moment or experience that was just really hard compared to the others?
Yeah, I think it was like the night that like so there was a day where it was like so me and my ex-boyfriend like always saw each other. It was like an everyday thing. We were never apart. And so there was one day where like I went over to his house in the morning and like brought him food and whatever. And we somehow like got into an argument, and then like we both just kind of like freaked out on each other. And it was a very hands-on argument, if you get like where what I'm like,
Yeah.
if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so that was hard. And my dad had to come pick me up because like I like it was just a really bad situation. And yeah, it was like that day kind of stuck with me, and like that was a pretty low point. And like when we were officially like broken up, and like we weren't seeing each other, we weren't in contact with each other, like I would just be in bed all day, like all day. I wouldn't even go work out, like, because this was during the time when I first started like working out and like wanting to get into CrossFit. And he wasn't, obviously, like he didn't know like a lot about it, so he wasn't supportive of it, so like because he didn't understand. All he, at that time, I don't know how he is now, but at that time in our lives, all we cared about was drugs and stuff like that. And so like I had like no motivation to like get out of bed. And I just wanted to stay in bed in a dark room all day. And that's what I did most days, like I didn't want to like do real world things because I mentally like I just wasn't there. And so like when we broke up, like that was like a really low time in my life where I like barely worked. I didn't work out. I didn't get out of the house much. And I was still doing drugs. I would just like when we broke contact, I still like I was trying to find like any kind of like I don't know, like anyone who would like let me buy off of them. And so I think the drugs, like the drug usage stopped when Nicole and Matt came home because I'm in, like I said, like I kind of lived with them. I'm in their house. I'm not going to bring that into their house. Like it's just, that's not my right. And the last thing they want is their little sister, doing drugs. And like, I didn't want to disappoint them. And because we've become really close. And so like, yeah, it was just that was probably the lowest point of my life.
I'm curious why you said yes to the podcast and what gives you the courage to just share so openly about this, because it clearly is something that is hard and fresh still, right? I mean, this is not super long ago.
Um, well, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. They're like in the background, like trying to get in. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I can't even hear the dogs, to be honest. We have
Okay.
so just a quick break here. My wife and I got a puppy recently, a couple weeks ago, and he's a menace. Like, I don't know, he really, like, he's a good boy. But when his puppy energy comes out, he's just an absolute terror.
Oh,
And so I think I understand, and honestly can't even hear him. So you're all
okay,
good.
good. They're like trying to break in. I'm sorry. I don't it's just a mess. But yeah, so the question back to that question.
Yeah. Just
Um
yeah, what gives you the courage to speak so openly about something that's so fresh in your life?
Well, there's like about like two reasons, and one is Grace. Like she is so open about her story, and I every time she shares it, I still learn something from it. Like I always do. And the impact she had on me, I would love to have that impact on someone because she has helped like my family has helped me, but Grace has she's helped me with my confidence, with sharing my story and being vulnerable because I mean, we met like almost a year and a half after all that happened. So it was like, hard to talk about, especially with someone who wasn't like my family. But she like taught me, how to be open and how to have courage and be vulnerable. And she helped me understand that sharing your story isn't for you, it's for other people. And if I help at least just like one person who's was in the same hole that I was, then like I'm happy. I'm good. Like, sharing, not only about the drugs that I used to do and everything like that, but my eating disorder, like when I share that on like any type of social media platform or tell people about it, they're like, you know what? Like I actually struggled with that too. And like, I'm so glad I'm not alone. And I'm so glad we have people in the world who are now educating others about it. And it's not, like it's not a light subject. It's hard and it needs to be talked about more. So yeah, I just want to help others. Like really just I want people to be the best like version of themselves. And if that takes me being vulnerable and just telling people like what happened to me and how I got out of it, then I'm down, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's really the spirit of this podcast, and it means a lot. And I just want to point out to anybody listening that I think being vulnerable is one of the strongest things that any of us can do. And like you said, and like Grace taught you, it sounds like sharing our story is more for other people. And I know there are people listening who this is impacting in a positive way. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, now, so that was a circumstance that you found yourself in, and with the help of some people close to you, you were able to get to this point in your life. What does everything look like now? I mean, do you have kind of the desire to go backward in any way, shape, or form? Does that temptation creep in? How do you fight that temptation if it does?
So I Okay, so after let's say like it was, gosh, it's 2023 now, so this would be 2021. Grace moved to Jackson because she got a job opportunity, and she told me that, and like I was like, I'm gonna miss you so much. Like she was my rock, and it was hard with her leaving and everything. So I got a little lonely. So I reached out to some friends who lived in Louisiana, and I like went up there and I hung out with them, and I met a guy and we hit it off and we started dating, and it wasn't everything that it was supposed to be. I mean, I'm immature now, but I was even more immature, a year and a half ago. So, and he was pretty young too, and it was bad on both our parts. And so it wasn't a very healthy relationship. We weren't very compatible, but I'm one of those people that if I have, and this is a good and a bad thing that I realized, if I have like an attachment in any sort of way, like I don't let that go very easily. And so like when we broke up, it was just very hard on me, because and now I know what not to do in future relationships. I've obviously taken a break from having a boyfriend, or any type of relationship, because I didn't know what I wanted. And so when I was given things, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to react. And so it just wasn't good. But we weren't best friends. We just kind of met and then we just started dating. And so it wasn't like he knew me and I knew him, because I didn't respect his work and he didn't respect mine. And so that caused a lot of self-worth issues. And it went back into like me staying in my room in the dark and like not getting out and doing adult things and not, working out to the best of my ability and, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, like I did want to go back to drugs. I did want to go back to bad habits or like old habits because that was the easy way out. But thankfully, I had, Nicole and Matt still there. And they're like, he may not be here, but we are still here and we're always going to be here. And you need to come to the gym with us and work out, or else like you're just gonna like rot away in your room. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm 19 years old, and in that moment, I think the world is going to end, and that's my anxiety. Like, I'm not going to find anyone. I'm not, whatever. Like, but in the long, like in the grand scheme of things, like that's not true. I'm just lying to myself at this point. And I'm lying to myself so much that it's stopping me from reaching like my full potential. And that can't happen anymore. Like that just cannot happen. And so got out of that hole. But yes, definitely, I think the people that I have in my life right now are the ones who are keeping me from going down that spiral again. And like I was pretty close to spiraling again, like very, very close. But and like I went up to Jackson after, that breakup to go spend time with Grace. And that was a really good weekend. Like we just worked out, we went shopping, all the good stuff. And I just was like vulnerable with her and I told her the whole situation. She was like, you need to get out and you need to be you. You need to continue, pursuing CrossFit and all the, like, she was like, you can do so many great things without this person in your life, because like you're the only one holding yourself back and you got to let it go. And so I let it go. And I'm still growing as a person. I'm still learning like who I am and what I want. And I'm just thankful that I have the people I have in my life right now, because I don't feel alone, and like I'm okay with being like single or whatever that is. Like that's okay, because if it takes me being single to reach my full potential, then fine. Like I'm totally down with that. So yeah, it's been a long, like the past 4 years, almost 4 years have been like me trying to figure out who I am and what I want. And I've like tried to fill that with different people. And that's like, you can't do that. Like I personally cannot do that. And I'm very stubborn and like I want things one way and one way specifically. And I, finally like figured out like that can't do that. So yeah.
Wow. I'll say this for 20 years old, you've got a really great head on your shoulders. And I know it might not feel like you have it all figured out. And you certainly don't. I don't. I don't think anybody listening to this does. To be honest, I don't think we ever figure it out. That's my take. And
Yeah.
maybe someday I'll prove myself wrong, but I think we're all just trying to navigate a very uncertain life full of a lot of complexities. And maybe the best way forward is just one step at a time with people that truly care about us. And it sounds like you're finding those people along your path. Just for people listening on the topics of self-worth and relationships and self-love, two episodes that might be interesting: episode 56 with Natalie Bell and episode 72 with Elena Smale touch on those relationship topics. And so with that being said, Anna, I want to ask you the next question. We talked about that circumstance or those circumstances that were hard. What's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and why have you chosen to do that thing?
Hardest thing I've ever done on purpose was move to Nashville on a whim. I visited Nashville for my 20th birthday in the summer of 2022, and I was still living with Grace. And I was in Green Hills in Nashville, Tennessee. And if people are listening and they know what this store is, like, it's ridiculous. But I found this store. It's called Brandy Melville, and it is a store for girls, and they sell clothing, but they had like this like QR code. They're like, we're hiring. And I was like, okay, might as well just like send it in. Didn't think anything of it. And you fast forward, that was in June. Fast forward to August. I'm on the way to Madison, Mississippi, to do the photo shoot with Grace because I just became like a BPN ambassador. And they're like, I answer the phone call and it's like, hey, like, this is the manager at Brandy Melville. We saw your application. We want to hire you. Can you start next week? And like, without thinking, I was like, yep, I'll move. I'm coming. Like, I'll start Monday. So I had to talk to my parents, and then we had to talk to Nicole and Matt, because Nicole and Matt actually they moved in to Nashville in March. And that was really hard on me because I just lost two of my best friends. Like, they don't live, down the street anymore. So, having this opportunity to move to Nashville, it was like, I need to take it. Like, this is my chance. This is my window. You need to go right now, because I wasn't really happy in Mississippi, because I feel like I had reached a point in my life where I had outgrown it, and that's okay. So I talked to them, got my hours all like worked out and stuff like that. And that weekend, packed my stuff up in my little Toyota Corolla and went up there. And I slept. We had a 1-bedroom apartment. I slept on the pull-out couch in the living room for like a month straight. Love that pull-out couch. It's actually pretty comfortable. And then we finally, I think it was like November, we moved into, no, it was before November. It was like October. We moved into our 2-bedroom apartment, and so we got a little bit more space. But yeah, that was probably the hardest thing I had to do on purpose, because I didn't have a lot like in my like bank account. Obviously, like I was working, like I had my photography job, and that just wasn't paying the bills really. And so I went from waking up, going to work whenever I wanted, working out for 8 hours a day, to waking up at 5 a.m., working out till 4 a.m., working out till 9:30 in the morning, and then going to work 10 to 6, going to bed and repeating it for 5 days a week. So that was hard, but I realized that, like, I love CrossFit so much, and I want to become a professional athlete, that this is what it takes. And if this is what it takes, I'm going to do it. I don't care. Like, I don't care if I have to wake up at 4 a.m. I don't care if I have to get off of work and go straight into training till 9 p.m. It doesn't matter. Like, I want to do this, and I'm not here to like just mess around. Like, I'm here for a reason. And so, yeah.
So the CrossFit stuff, Is that inspired by your sister?
Oh, yes. Nicole is her story is crazy. She's shown me like what it takes. And it's a hard road. It wasn't right now she has the ability to train 7 hours a day, but that's because she worked so hard and like when she's 30 right now, so she started when she's like 23. She worked so hard in those first couple of years to where now she's like she can do that. And I believe that if she can do it, or if this person can do it, then I can do it too. Like, it's not like it just takes dedication and it takes being uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that.
So one thing, I hope that Nicole and Matt get a chance to listen to this, because as someone who has a younger brother and a younger sister, it sounds like they've done what I hope I can do for my siblings, and just support them unconditionally in whatever way they need throughout their lives. And that's really special. So kudos to them for being there. And then second, I would imagine there are days where you don't want to work out, right? No matter how much drive you have, how much you want it, right? There are probably those mornings where you wake up and you just want to go back to bed. Tell us about some of those mornings, and what gets you to the gym? What thoughts get you to the gym on those mornings?
I wake up. I kind of so for the first like 3 months of living here, it's been the 4 a.m. routine, but now I switched over because I have a training partner now and he works out after like kind of in the afternoons. So I get off work at 6 and we go from 6 to 8:30 or 9. I'll try to get a session in the morning that's like a like a cardio piece, but other than that, we usually do it at night. But when I was waking up at 4 a.m., like it's the sun has not risen. Like it's like the world is not awake. No one should be up at that hour, but it's like I have a couple things that my mind goes to, and the biggest one is like a lot of people where I used to live didn't believe in me. A lot of people that I went to high school with didn't believe in me, that kind of thing. And I was like told, even when I was in that, toxic relationship in 2021 through kind of like 2022, like they didn't, he didn't believe in me. And so I always remember those people and I'm like, I'm proving them wrong. When I need a little motivation, I just think about them. And like a lot of people I hear like, oh, don't even like put energy towards them. But like, no, like I want to prove them wrong. And I want to say that I did this by myself and without them. And so when they see me, now or in 2 years, they're like, oh, dang, wow, she really did it. It's like, yeah, I did. And so that is one. It's like a little chip on my shoulder. Another one is I love the people who are at the gym. I go to CrossFit Trivium, and I've never been in a more accepting community. The first day I walked in there, I decided to do a class with Matt, who manages the gym, my brother-in-law. Like I texted him, I was like, oh, like what time are you going? Because I'm nervous. And he's like, I'm going to work out at this time. I was like, okay, I'll come. Like 4 people came up and introduced themselves to me. The coach, like anyone who's new, if you're taking a class, the coach will say your name and introduce you. So people know your name and everything like that. And you feel important and you feel special. And I didn't experience that beforehand, in a CrossFit like space. And so when that happened, it was just like, these people really care. And I like now when like new people come in, I want to be the person who's like, oh my gosh, hey, what's up? I'm AG. Like, let's work out together. Let's have some fun, stuff like that, because they gave me such a good experience now that I want to share that with other people, because it's like the most, like the best feeling in the world. So yeah, that's another one. And the third one is, I guess, like, I just have this one goal of making it to the CrossFit Games, and like making it to the CrossFit Games means you have to get a little bit uncomfortable. And, there are people waking up at 3 a.m. to get to the gym, and I'm waking up at 4 a.m. So like, it's okay. You're not going to die from this. Like, you're going to be fine. It's time to get up and get to work. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna work backwards on a couple of the things that you said. One, I'm one of those freaks who's up at 3 a.m. Every now and then. And I woke up this morning to get my dog out to bring him to the bathroom, and it was like 3:30, and he looked at me like, what are you doing right now? It's 3:30 in the morning. He's like, I carried him. He was sleeping to the backyard. And
Oh,
um, but but yeah, I get that. And there's this feeling that no matter how hard it is, even if the sun's not up, even if you don't want to, you're up and the rest of the world is sleeping. And something about that feels good. And it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not about us versus the world. It's not, me versus everybody. And it's not competition, but something about that feels good. So just to acknowledge that for all the early risers out there, you get it. The other thing is, making people feel welcome and accepted. I think that's so powerful. And it's so cool to hear that you had that experience and you received that. And that has now inspired you to give that. Um, you never know what somebody's going through. And somebody could walk into that CrossFit gym and be having the worst day of their life. They can be, it could have been such a struggle just to get out of bed in the morning, and they're there somehow. And you come up to them and you introduce yourself and you say their name and you bring your energy, and that can change someone's day. It could also change somebody's life. And I feel like if people listening to this podcast could just go out, introduce themselves to one new person, hold a door, flash a smile, send a nice message, right? The world would be such a better place. And you never know who you'll inspire to do the same. So that's that point. And then last, I think there's a lot of power in being able to access that chip on your shoulder. I think a lot of people want to lean toward, you know, don't worry about proving other people wrong. Focus on the positive, focus on being better, and focus on, proving yourself right, which I think is really valid. In certain circumstances, I think that chip, proving people wrong, having that dark side to be able to tap into, it's just really powerful. And I don't think we should live there, but just to acknowledge, I think it's powerful. So yeah. Anything else you have to add there, Anna?
um, like you pretty much nailed it with like, because I do tell a lot of people, because I do get messages or even in person like, wow, how do you stay so motivated? It's like I got this chip on my shoulder, and they're like, well, you see, that's kind of toxic, and I'm like, no, like I don't live there. It's only really when I need to pull it out. Like you think about like I don't know, I've had a lot of like I've been through some really hard things, and so it's just I just let me see how I'm trying to word this. I've I've struggled with, managing my emotions and, you know, trying to like get better at that. That's taken time. And working out has actually helped a lot with that, because you have to manage your emotions, especially like when you do competitions or when you do qualifiers. It's like you can't, if you mess up one thing, you can't just like, throw it in the trash and have to start over. Like, no, you're 10 minutes into a 20-minute workout. Like, you have to keep going, whether you like it or not. And so that's taught me how to manage like anger, upset, like, or sadness or happiness. Like, I am able to manage my emotions in a workout because I've been practicing for the past 3 years. And not only has that helped me with, working out and being an athlete, but it's also helped me in the real world with like my boss or my family or my best friend, or even like a coworker or a client. Like in those moments where you're on the spot, it's like you have to learn how to react correctly. And I'm not saying I do that every time. Like I mess up a lot, but I'm still learning, and I'm way better at it now than I was when I was 17. So that's, a good thing to have, I guess.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, from a fitness standpoint, I think a lot of it, if not most of it, is the battle between the ears. It's, our bodies can do more. It's what can we tap into and how can we regulate and control what we're thinking. And to that point, being able to respond thoughtfully to a situation rather than react impulsively to a situation is a skill that needs to be practiced over and over and over again. And it's cool that you've learned that through some of your life experiences and you're able to translate that now to fitness and to your work and to your relationships. And to one of the points you said earlier, just about tapping into that chip, there's a famous Chinese saying that says, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And I feel like that holds a lot of truth in this conversation. It's better to have that chip and to be able to access it than to not have that chip and to not be able to access it, right? It's better to be a warrior in a garden and know how to control that rather than to be a gardener in a war. And so with that being said, Anna, a lot of what we're talking about requires repetition. It requires consistency over a long period of time. It requires endurance. This is the Project Endure podcast. And so when you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Endurance means like a lot of the times when I see that word, I'm like, oh shoot, this is gonna be like an hour workout. Like this is gonna be hard and this is gonna suck and it's gonna be grunt work, but it's gonna make me better. That endurance that I'm doing is going to make me better. That's what I think. And if as long as you like understand like it's going to be a hard like journey, kind of like what I was talking about, like when I was getting off drugs, when I was learning how to prioritize my health, like it didn't happen overnight. Like that took a long time. And as long as you're consistent with it, and I'm not saying like you're going to be perfect, like you're going to mess up, but like as long as you're consistent and you do your best and you try your hardest and you have the right people around you, you're going to make it and you're going to be just fine. That 60 minutes will be over before you know it. That week will be over before you know it. You just have to kind of like keep your mind at the light at the end of the tunnel, even though it seems like so dark.
What are some of the things that you'll say to yourself during a workout when you want to quit? I'm curious, just because I think most people listening to this podcast have found that place, that limit. And some people are able to push through and some people aren't. And sometimes it depends on the day. But what do you tell yourself when you hit that point in a workout?
I sometimes I'll be like, okay, like you can do this, you can manage this pain. And other times I have to be a little bit more aggressive with myself. Are we allowed to like cuss on this podcast?
Oh yeah. You know what? I find it so funny. So many people ask me that, and the
Yeah.
answer is yes. My first guess cussed in the first 2 minutes. So yeah, you're good.
Nice. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I have to be like a little bit aggressive and I'm like, don't be a bitch. Like, don't like stop whining and get over it. And mostly I'll go more towards the aggressive side because a lot of the workouts I'm now doing is focusing on my weaknesses. And so that takes a lot of grit, and I'm like this. And sometimes a lot of times my mind will go to like a particular competitor. Like we have multiple that we have to go like against, in the future and future competitions in the open. But I like think about competitors. I'm like, they wouldn't quit. So why are you wanting to quit? Like, so yeah, but other times I'm like, you can do this. Like you're fine. Like it's okay. But yeah, I am a little bit more aggressive and that's just what works for me personally. So yeah, and the best thing is when I text like the guy I'm working with right now, I text him and I'm like, I wasn't a little bitch, like, like I feel good. He's like, hell yeah. So
And I think there are these tools in the toolbox that the better we know ourselves, the more we're able to access the tools that we need in those moments. And it's going to look different for everybody.
yeah.
Anna, this podcast is really special to me because I know there are people listening who are in all different kinds of places in life, and some people are feeling good, some people are having fun, and some people are not. Some people are hurting, some people are struggling, some people are stuck. And for those people who are just in a dark season, a hard time, not sure what to do or where to go, if you were to speak directly to them and just give some encouragement, give some guidance, and just speak to them, what would you say?
I would say find one thing that gets you out of bed, whether that is working out, whether that is your family, your best friend, whether that is your dog. Like, I know so many people who have told me to my face, they're like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dog. Like, that kind of thing. Like, it's the small things that really matter. And I what I want people to do is find that one thing that makes them get out of bed. That's what makes me get out of bed literally every morning is CrossFit and getting better and doing my best to be the best version of myself. So find that one thing and really like focus on it. And the thing is a lot of people who are professional athletes, like whether that's NFL players, NBA, CrossFit athletes, whatever, people think they're crazy. And it's because they're hyper focused on one thing. And if it takes you being hyper focused on one thing for you to get better and for you to be healthy, then so be it. Like that's fine. And I would rather people do that than like do a bunch of different things, if you know what I'm saying, like where they have too much on their plate, where they're keeping themselves busy. It's like, no, like you can have one thing and that be your reason to get out of bed. And so that's what I encourage other people to do. And like I said before many times, it's like, it's not, the next day, it's just going to be amazing and happy and you're going to be healthy and everything's going to be great. Like, no, it takes time. Like it's going to take time and it's going to suck. But another thing is like community is such a big thing for me and family is such a big thing for me. And having them around me was like, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here, like without their support, because I have like the best support group I could ever have. And I wouldn't change it for anything. So yeah.
It's beautiful. I want to share a quote. This one I've actually been thinking about for the past 30 minutes, and I've just been waiting for the right moment. It's from Veronica Roth, and it sounds like you went through a season where this was very much applicable to you. And I'm imagining there are people who this will resonate with. So she said, "There are so many ways to be brave in this world. Sometimes bravery involves laying down your life for something bigger than yourself or for someone else. Sometimes it involves giving up everything you've ever known or everyone you've ever loved for the sake of something greater. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it is nothing more than gritting your teeth through the pain and the work of every day, the slow walk toward a better life. That is the sort of bravery I must have now." And I feel like people think it needs to be this big, special thing that they need to go after and share on social media. And sometimes being brave, being courageous, embracing endurance is getting out of bed in the morning and doing that one thing that is really, really hard, no matter how small. And Anna, I just want to thank you for sharing your story, for being a light in this world. We need more people like you. And if people want to connect with you, if they want to follow along with your journey, and if they want to reach out, where should they do that?
Easiest place to reach me is Instagram. Like that is like the easiest place. I can see like requests and DMs and stuff like that. So if you have anything, like I am open to talking about whatever. So yeah, Instagram.
Awesome. And then one last thing, when you make it to the CrossFit Games, just don't forget about us. We'll have you back on the podcast, and
Yes.
we'll watch this journey come full circle. But we're rooting for you, and I appreciate you big time.
Yeah, well, thank you. I definitely couldn't forget about this podcast because like this has made a positive impact on me and has made me feel special. So I appreciate that a lot.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.